Have you ever worked your whole life only to feel like it still wasn't enough? My retirement dream has turned into a nightmare, and I need to tell you how it happened so I can stop it from happening to you. My name is Susan. For 40 years, I was a public school teacher. It wasn't flashy, but it was steady, and it came with a promise. If I worked hard, if I was responsible, I'd have a secure, peaceful retirement. And I kept my end of the bargain. We built a life on that promise. My husband, David, was in middle management. We weren't wealthy, but we were planners. Our friends always joked and called us the squirrels, always tucking something away for winter. I remember them laughing about it over potluck dinners, admiring how disciplined we were. We'd just smile, feeling that quiet pride. That discipline, we thought, made us invincible. That money wasn't just for some far-off date on a calendar. It was for the life we pictured. Christmas mornings with wrapping paper strewn all over the floor, the smell of hot chocolate in the air, grandchildren laughing. Summer barbecues in the backyard, the smell of charcoal and freshly cut grass. Our savings were the foundation for all of it. Our plan was that classic three-legged stool. The first leg was my pension. That was the bedrock. I remember my older colleagues at school patting my arm. "Don't you worry, Susan," they'd say. "You've got the pension. You'll be set for life." It felt like a sacred contract. I watched them retire, looking so relaxed. I thought, that'll be me. The second leg was our own savings, our 401ks and IRAs. David was so disciplined, always capturing the company match. "It's free money, Sue," he'd say. "You never turn down free money." We watched those balances grow for decades, until one day, sitting at the kitchen table we've had for 30 years, we crossed the $1 million line. David looked at me, his eyes crinkling at the corners, and just said, "We did it. We can actually do it." That $1 million nest egg wasn't just money. It was a monument to our discipline. It was our ticket to that peaceful life. The third leg was Social Security. We planned to wait to get the biggest check possible. Pension, $1 million, and maximized Social Security. We'd built a financial fortress. When I retired at 65, it was perfect. We took a road trip to see the national parks. We weren't extravagant. We flew coach and stayed in normal hotels. We made a careful budget, pulling only 4% from our savings. Life was good. It was secure. I had earned this. I thought nothing could touch our fortress. But what I thought was a fortress would crumble faster than I ever imagined. Our fortress didn't get hit by a wrecking ball. It was death by 1,000 cuts. It started with the small things. A carton of eggs, then a gallon of milk. But then it was the new pair of prescription glasses, the dental work Medicare wouldn't touch, even the cost of a simple birthday card. My weekly grocery bill went from $120 to nearly $200. It felt like a leaky tire, just a slow, steady hiss of our money's value escaping into thin air. Have you felt that slow bleed too, where every month your money buys less? Then it was the property tax bill that jumped by hundreds of dollars. It was the copay on my routine prescriptions doubling. It was the utility bill in the winter that made me keep the thermostat at 65 degrees. My rock-solid pension, the one my colleagues promised would be my shield, was shrinking in value every single month. Their assurances of being set for life felt like a distant, hollow echo against the new reality. We told ourselves it was transitory, just like on the news, but it wasn't. I thought inflation was the worst of it, but I was wrong. The real test came from my own family. Our daughter Sarah, a single mom, lost her job. Weeks of her searching turned into months. One night she called, sobbing. Her son, my grandson, needed emergency dental surgery. $5,000 she did not have. What does any parent do? You help. I remember sitting in the waiting room, holding his small hand in mine, feeling his warmth and trust, and remembering when I held Sarah's hand just like that at the dentist 30 years ago. That joy was everything. But later that day, writing that $5,000 check, a cold, quiet panic crept in on the car ride home. A feeling I couldn't dare speak aloud. That was just the start. A few weeks later, it was $2,000 for the mortgage, then a few hundred for groceries. Then came the second blow, a bad storm, and our roof began leaking. Not a drip, a flood. The contractor said the whole thing had to be replaced. The cost? $25,000. Half of what we'd planned to live on from our savings for the whole year. This was family. This was our home. This was just life. But our plan hadn't budgeted for this much life. Our emergency fund was gone. And that's when I did it. For the first time, I used a credit card for something I knew I couldn't pay off at the end of the month. I bought groceries. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly in the dark, the shadows circling the room. I could feel my heart pounding as I told myself it was a one-time thing, just a temporary fix until we got back on our feet. That small lie, using the card for essentials, felt like a tiny crack in our fortress. I didn't know it yet that my lowest moment would happen in front of strangers under the harsh buzz of fluorescent lights. That first time I carried a balance on the credit card felt like a minor surrender. But next month, the car needed new brakes. Another $1,000. Onto the card it went. When the bill arrived, the minimum payment looked so harmless. Pay just $35. Paying the whole thing meant selling more from our 401k, and I couldn't bear to see that balance drop again. So I paid the minimum. Just this once. That's the seductive trap. It doesn't feel like a crisis. It feels like a solution. In 6 months, my temporary float was a $5,000 balance. The interest rate was 22.99%. I was paying hundreds just for the privilege of being in debt. Shame moved in and became my constant roommate. I started hiding the statements from David. He'd ask how the budget was going, and I'd say, "We're fine, honey," while shoving a credit card statement under a stack of magazines. I wonder if you've ever hidden something from your spouse, not because you wanted to, but because the shame felt unbearable. We'd sit on the same couch we'd shared for 40 years, but suddenly there was a canyon between us, carved out by my secrets. Then David's health took a downturn. He needed a new medication. I remember standing at the altar on our wedding day, young and full of hope, promising in sickness and in health. I never imagined in sickness would mean standing at a cold pharmacy counter while the clerk told me it was a $400 copay every single month that our insurance wouldn't touch. Another promise of security turning to dust. Where did it go? Onto the credit card. The balance climbed to $10, then 15,000. The breaking point came at the grocery store. I went to pay for a cart full of essentials: bread, milk, eggs, even some baby cereal for my grandson. I slid the card, and the machine made that awful little sound. Declined. Declined. I'm 67 years old, a retired teacher with $1 million retirement, and I couldn't buy bread. The cashier, a young girl, just gave me that look. Not mean, just pity. The man behind me sighed loudly, shifting his weight. My face felt like it was on fire. I mumbled something about grabbing the wrong purse and walked away, leaving a full cart of groceries sitting there. The humiliation was so total, I could barely breathe. I went home and pulled out every single statement. Visa, $18,500. MasterCard, $14,200. A store card, $3,000. Over $35,000 in debt. I spread them across the kitchen table, the papers making a soft, terrible scraping sound. Our nest egg? After everything, it was just over $800,000. We had burned through almost $200,000 in 2 years. When David came home, he found me at the table, just staring at that pile of paper, the ink on the pages smudged by my tears. He stood silently in the doorway for a long moment, his face a mask of disbelief. Finally, he just whispered, "How long, Sue? How long has this been going on?" Before he sat down heavily across from me. The secret was out. The scariest part of that moment wasn't just my own failure. It was the slow, dawning horror that my story wasn't unique. I was a statistic in a crisis that's silently unfolding in millions of homes. My shame, which felt so personal, was being felt everywhere. Retirement in America is changing. Recent studies show a huge number of retirees are struggling with debt. One 2024 report found that of the roughly 6 in 10 retirees who have debt, 68% of them had outstanding credit card debt. And it's getting worse. In a 2024 survey, 31% of retirees said their spending was more than they could afford, a huge jump from just 17% a few years earlier. People who did everything right are being pushed to the edge. The Social Security cost of living adjustment for 2025 is projected to be around 2.5%. But for many of us, that doesn't even touch the real price of essentials. They aren't using credit cards for luxuries. They're using them to survive. A recent AARP survey showed that nearly half of older Americans with credit card debt use it to pay for basic living expenses because they don't have the cash. My story isn't a freak accident. It's a warning flare. It's the new retirement crisis, and it's unfolding quietly because we're all too ashamed to talk about it. But that has to end. I thought this was the end of our story, but it was really the beginning of our fight back. That day, with the bills on the table, was the lowest point of my life, but it was also day one of our comeback. We are not out of the woods, but now we have a plan. We are fighting back. Step 1. Face the numbers, no flinching. First, you have to see how bad the wound is. Gather every bill. Make a master list. What you owe, the interest rate, the minimum payment. Seeing $35,000 in debt at an average interest rate over 20% was sickening, but it was also clarifying. I wonder if you've ever felt that. That paralysis of just looking at the numbers, feeling like they're swallowing you whole. Seeing them on paper was the first step to taking the power back. But the hardest part wasn't the numbers. It was facing what those numbers meant for our future. Step 2. The Debt Attack Plan. Next, you need a strategy. We chose the Debt Avalanche. You pay the minimum on everything, but you throw all your extra money at the debt with the highest interest rate. Our highest rate card was a store card at a ridiculous 26.99%. That became public enemy number 1. To get those spare dollars, we made cuts that hurt. We canceled cable. No more eating out. Watching that high-interest debt shrink was more satisfying than any restaurant meal. But just cutting expenses wasn't going to be enough. We had to do something more radical. Step 3. Building a new retirement plan. You can't get out of a deep hole with small trims. You have to change your entire approach. The 4% rule was dead for us. We had to slash our 401k withdrawals to the bare minimum. Second, we needed more income. The thought of going back to work at 68 was humbling, but bankruptcy was worse. I started tutoring. I love the smell of pencil shavings, the sound of a child's laughter when they finally understand a problem. That work gives me a dignity I thought I'd lost. David, whose health is stable now, took a part-time job as a cashier at the hardware store. He came home from his first shift smelling like sawdust, with a blister on his thumb. He looked exhausted, but when he looked at me, the emptiness in his eyes was gone. He was bagging screws instead of managing a plant floor, but he was fighting. He had purpose again. My tutoring money felt more valuable than any paycheck I'd ever earned, because every dollar was a bullet aimed right at our debt. Third, we're seriously considering downsizing. We walk through the house now and it feels different. The other day, I opened a closet and found a forgotten box of our daughter's old toys. I pulled out a faded drawing she made in kindergarten, her little handprints on the back. I just stood there, listening to the echoes in the empty bedrooms. That's the wall where we marked the kids' heights, with pencil lines and dates still faint on the paint. Selling it doesn't just feel like selling a house. It feels like selling our memories, erasing a part of our family's history. But the goal isn't to preserve the past anymore. It's to secure a future. Any kind of future. Step 4. Don't go it alone. Finally, get help. The shame kept me isolated and made everything worse. We went to a nonprofit credit counseling agency. They helped us consolidate our debt and gave us a 5-year plan. Just having a professional look at our mess without judgment and say, "This is fixable," was an incredible relief. We also hired a fee-only financial advisor to help us protect what we have left. We're not chasing big returns anymore. We're just trying to hold on. I started this story sitting at my kitchen table in the dark, feeling like a total failure. I'm still at that table today, but the lights are on. And that light isn't just about electricity. It's the light of honesty. It shines on a budget that is brutally tight, but completely transparent. It means the pile of terrifying, unopened bills is gone, replaced by our single payment plan. That light brings warmth back to the kitchen. It means David and I can look each other in the eye again without secrets between us. The light doesn't just show the ugly numbers anymore. It shows us a path forward. It's the light of survival, of resilience, of hope. My $1 million retirement is a memory. David and I won't be taking big trips. Our life is going to be smaller than we ever imagined. And there's a real grief in that. But underneath the grief, something else is growing. A toughness I didn't know I had. We are paying our own way again. Our debt balance is going down, not up. We are no longer slaves to the minimum payment. We are making our own choices, no matter how hard they are. And there is a profound, quiet dignity in that. If you're listening and you hear your own story, please know you are not a failure. You might have made mistakes, I sure did, but you've been caught in an economic tidal wave. If you're sitting in your own kitchen right now, feeling that same fear I felt, I want you to know you're not alone. We can get through this together. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.